I never imagined the day my mother would look directly into my eyes, smile proudly, and still manage to stab me with a sentence softer than silk but sharper than a knife. We were sitting in the living room, busy finalizing the last-minute preparations for my sister Emily's wedding. My mother was glowing with excitement, the kind she never once showed for me. Emily was the golden child, perfect grades, perfect fiancé, perfect life. And I was the daughter who came second in everything, including my own mother's love. As Mom flipped through the wedding planner, she didn't even look up when she asked, "Your sister's wedding will be perfect. When's your turn?" I froze for a second. Not because I didn't expect this question, but because I already knew the truth, a truth I had kept hidden for almost a year. My heart pounded. I could tell she wasn't asking out of love or excitement. It was judgment, pressure, comparison. Again, like always, I took a breath and said calmly, "It already happened." The room went silent as if someone had cut the air in half. Mom slowly turned her head toward me. Her smile vanished. Her forehead tightened. "What do you mean, it already happened?" she asked, like she couldn't believe her ears. I repeated slowly, "I'm married, Mom." Her eyes widened, and the planner fell from her hands onto the carpet. Emily gasped dramatically, leaning closer like she was watching a scandalous episode of a reality show. "What? To who? When? Why didn't you tell us?" she demanded, half shocked, half excited to hear something she could gossip about later. Mom stood up, angry now. "You got married without telling your own family. Without inviting us." Her voice cracked, not with hurt, but embarrassment. It was like she wasn't upset that she missed my wedding. She was furious that she wasn't able to show off. I didn't respond immediately. How could I explain that they didn't deserve to be at my wedding? They had never supported me, never celebrated me, never even cared about what I wanted. They controlled everything, my clothes, my choices, my friends, even the men I dated. I had met Daniel 3 years ago, but whenever I brought him up, Mom would wave her hand dismissively and say, "He's not your sister's type of man," as if my relationships depended on Emily. When Daniel proposed last year, I hesitated, terrified of telling my family. He convinced me to choose myself for once. So we had a small courthouse wedding with just 2 witnesses. Quiet, simple, beautiful, peaceful, exactly what I wanted. And for a year, I told no one. Mom paced the room, shaking her head. "This is unbelievable. This is humiliating. What will people say? Our own daughter got married like, she struggled for words, then finally said, like she was ashamed of us." I couldn't help the small bitter laugh that slipped out. "Maybe I was," I said softly. Emily flinched and made a face like I had slapped her. Mom's face burned with anger. "How dare you? After everything we've done for you. Everything they'd done for me." Memories flashed through my mind, being forced to give up my dream college so Emily could go out of state, being told to lend her money from my savings because, "You don't need it as much as she does," hearing my own mother say, "Emily is our pride. You're reliable, like a tool, not a daughter." I finally sat down and looked at both of them. "I didn't tell you because you wouldn't have let me make my own choice. You never do. You don't listen. You don't support me. You never have." Mom crossed her arms. "So what now? You expect us to accept this marriage? This disrespect?" "No," I replied. "I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know because you asked." Emily whispered loudly, "This is going to ruin the wedding vibe." I ignored her. Because something bigger was coming. I could feel it. Mom took a deep breath, then delivered the final blow. "Fine. If that's how you feel, then you and your secret husband are not invited to Emily's wedding." I looked at her for a long moment. The old me would have cried, begged, apologized. But not anymore. I stood up. "That's okay, Mom. I wasn't planning to go." Her jaw dropped. She was speechless for the first time in her life. And she had no idea that her worst shock. Mom stood there, frozen, as if my words had sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Emily nervously picked up the fallen wedding planner and pretended to flip through it, but she kept stealing glances at me with that familiar mix of jealousy and superiority she always carried. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. The silence itself was revenge enough. I walked out of the house with my keys in hand, feeling strangely light, like I had just cut a rope that had been pulling me backward for years. When I reached my car, I finally exhaled deeply. My hands trembled a little, but not with fear. With relief. That night, Daniel made dinner and listened carefully as I told him what happened. His calm nature always grounded me. "You did the right thing," he said, placing his hand gently over mine. "You finally stood up for yourself." I nodded. "But they still don't know everything." And they'll find out soon, he replied with a smile. At the right time. The right time came faster than expected. 2 weeks later, Emily's wedding invitations were mailed out. I didn't receive one. I wasn't surprised. What did surprise me, though, was the text she sent. I hope you're okay. It's better if you don't come because we don't want drama. Maybe next time we can talk like sisters. Next time. The same line she'd used since childhood whenever she hurt me. Daniel walked over with his laptop and said, "You ready?" I nodded and sat beside him. He opened the folder we'd been building for months: documents, signatures, emails, receipts, recordings, everything. Proof of what my mother and Emily didn't know. My mother had always controlled the family business, at least, she thought she did. What she never noticed was that Grandpa had filed new ownership documents before he passed away. And when Grandpa left this world, he left behind not just memories, but a very specific legally binding note. To my granddaughter who was ignored but never gave up, I leave the rights to my company and property. That granddaughter was me. Mom and Emily believed everything was in their name. They assumed they would take over Grandpa's business, sell it, and use the money for Emily's wedding and Mom's dream retirement. They didn't know Grandpa had changed everything after Emily told him one day, "She's just the backup child, Grandpa." He heard her. I didn't know this until we found the recordings in Grandpa's safe. Daniel clicked on one of the recordings. Grandpa's voice came through faintly. "She may not be your first choice, but she's mine." I covered my mouth as tears ran down my face every time I heard that line. Grandpa had seen me, really seen me, when no one else did. Daniel placed his hand on my back. "Tomorrow, we file the official ownership transfer. After that, they'll know." Emily's wedding rehearsal dinner was the next day. And that's when everything exploded. I hadn't planned on going. But Daniel insisted, "You don't have to go inside. Just let the truth arrive." We drove there and parked across the street. People in elegant dresses and suits were walking into the venue, laughing, taking pictures, living in the world I had never been welcome in. I didn't envy them anymore. I just felt done. Daniel sent an email to my mother, Emily, and the family lawyer. 3 minutes later, my mother came rushing out of the venue, her hair perfect, dress glittering, and fury boiling behind her eyes. She spotted my car instantly. She stormed over. "What is this?" she shouted, holding her phone with the email open. Some kind of joke. Emily ran behind her, still in her rehearsal gown, almost tripping. "Tell her it's fake. Tell her you didn't take Grandpa's company." I stepped out of the car slowly. "I didn't take it. He gave it to me." Mom shook her head violently. "He would never do that." "Then listen," I said, pressing play on the recording. Grandpa's voice echoed in the parking lot. Emily's face drained of color. Mom's hands trembled. People passing by stared. Daniel walked up beside me. "Everything has been legally filed. Starting tomorrow, she owns the company and all assets. You cannot access accounts. You cannot sell anything. You cannot touch anything." Emily burst into tears. Mom's lips shook as she whispered, "You ruined us." I looked straight at her and said quietly, "No. You ruined us a long time ago." I just walked away. Mom staggered back as if the words physically hit her. And that was only the beginning. Because the biggest shock was still coming, and it would land right in the middle of Emily's wedding day. Emily's wedding day arrived like a storm waiting to break. The sky was bright, but there was tension in the air, tension my mother and sister had created themselves. Daniel and I weren't invited, of course, but we didn't need to be there physically. The truth was already on its way. The ceremony was being held at an outdoor venue, white chairs, a floral arch, soft music, and guests wearing expensive smiles. Emily stood in her dressing room, getting her makeup touched up, complaining loudly about how this whole company drama ruined her excitement. Mom hovered beside her, whispering frantically to relatives and lying through her teeth. "She forged the documents," Mom insisted. "She manipulated Grandpa. We're meeting a lawyer right after the wedding. Don't worry, Emily. Nobody will take what belongs to our family." But the truth didn't care about their lies. While Emily stepped into her wedding gown, the family lawyer arrived at the venue. Apparently, he hadn't slept all night. He had read every document, every signature, every file Grandpa left behind. He had listened to every audio recording. And the conclusion was simple. Everything belonged to me, legally, permanently, undeniably. The lawyer approached my mother quietly. "We need to talk. Now." Emily saw Mom's face drain of blood and rushed over. "Mom, what happened? Is everything okay?" Before Mom could drag him away, the lawyer said clearly, "You need to understand that the business, the properties, the accounts, everything is lawfully your sister's. Your grandfather left it all to her. This cannot be contested. Gasps echoed through the room. Mom tried to pull him aside, but he continued, and there's more. The funds for this wedding were paid from company accounts under your mother's name. That is embezzlement now, because the business was no longer hers to spend. Emily froze, mascara wand midair. What do you mean, embezzlement? This wedding is already happening. The lawyer sighed. Legally, the expenses belong to her now. She has the right to freeze accounts, demand repayment, or report misuse. She hasn't done so yet, but she can. Mom collapsed into a chair like her knees had melted. Emily started shaking, as if the ground was slipping from under her heels. The room that once smelled of flowers and hairspray now felt suffocating. Meanwhile, Daniel held my hand as we sat in a cafe miles away, sipping coffee. By now, he said softly, they've learned everything. My phone buzzed. It was Emily. Then Mom. Then a flood of messages. Please come talk. This is a misunderstanding. We need you here. Can you not ruin your sister's big day? Please, she's crying. I didn't reply. Not out of revenge, out of peace. I had spent my entire life begging for their attention, love, approval. I wasn't doing that anymore. At the venue, chaos grew. Guests overheard the arguments. Rumors spread. Emily's fiancé asked what was going on, and when he learned the truth, he stared at Emily like he didn't recognize her. You told me you and your mom ran the business, he said quietly. You said your sister barely contributed. Emily tried to grab his arm. Baby, please, it's her fault. She did this to sabotage me. But he pulled away. The wedding coordinator approached nervously. We need confirmation about payment. The venue and caterers are asking who is responsible. Mom stuttered, we can't right now. Emily's fiancé stepped forward coldly. Cancel it. All of it. Emily screamed. Not cried, screamed. A sound filled with fear, anger, humiliation. Something broke in her eyes as she watched her perfect fairy tale collapse around her. The groom walked out. His family followed. The music stopped. Guests began leaving. And Emily stood alone in her ruined dream, makeup streaking down her face, dress dragging through dirt. That same moment, I finally replied. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped letting you ruin me. Emily called me instantly, sobbing. Mom called after her, begging, bargaining, promising. I didn't pick up. Instead, Daniel and I drove to Grandpa's favorite lake, the same place we signed our marriage license and promised we'd build a life based on kindness, not control. I looked out at the calm water. Do you think I was too harsh? I asked. Daniel shook his head. No, you didn't punish them. You simply stepped into what was yours. The rest, they did to themselves. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was free. My mother and sister didn't lose to me, they lost to their own selfishness. And I finally won myself back.